All right, everybody, warm up your umpiring arms, sharpen your pencils, because today we have a Cricket Nation cast match official special. Yes, that's right. We are celebrating the unveiling of our umpiring panels for the coming season, along with our match referees and scoring managers for domestic cricket. Obviously, these play a huge part in the game. They're the unsung heroes of cricket. The match officials so integral to our summer game, and we've got a couple of our leading lights on the show, and I'm determined to get the inside scoop from those who usually do their work away from the public eye, yet are often right in the thick of the action. And first up, we have one of our very best umpires who stands in the New Zealand domestic scene as well as in the white ball international cricket. His name is Chris Brown. He was born in Rarotonga, the Cook Islands. He's represented Auckland as an all-rounder, a bowling all-rounder, I'm told, through the 90s. He returned to captain the Cooks before switching to umpiring, rising through the ranks to now be on the NZC national and international panels. He stood in 17 ODIs, 27 T20 internationals since 2016. He's also a detective, so no stranger to making decisions under pressure. He's also a properly decent bloke and gives me quality weather updates when we're at the internationals. Brownie, that's a big old intro, mate. Is most of that accurate?
About 40% of it, Willy. Kirana.
How are you? What's been happening? I suppose we're not in cricket season, so you're back to your day job at the moment, are you?
No, at the moment, actually, I'm waiting for the cricket season to start, and really looking forward to that. I was fortunate enough during lockdown to get some work with the police, which was very helpful. But actually, recently, I've just been doing some work around the home. So you'll see I've moved to the garage, and thankfully, during the lockdown period, I was able to insulate the garage, so it's a little bit warmer here than I thought.
Well, we appreciate you migrating down there for a special Cricket Nation cast. Just quickly, can you take me through that journey? You said it was 40% of it was right, but I imagine, it seems like cricket in both here and the Cook Islands. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey to now becoming one of our elite umpires?
Well, look, I don't know where you got the all-rounder from. I'm very flattered about that, but that is very inaccurate. Maybe for the Cook Islands, I might have been a bowling all-rounder, but certainly not for Auckland.
Right, so just a pace bowler.
Even pace is very generous. Thank you. Yeah, I'll say that. No, I was fortunate enough through the early mid-90s to play for Auckland, where bowling was really my forte. Certainly not my batting. But then when I finished that in the late 90s sort of thing, early 2000s, I then was fortunate enough to sort of get involved with Cook Islands cricket, and that finished in about 2011, 2012, and that was great fun. It was great to play at that level, and I guess to share my experience with the Cook Island boys in that.
What stage did you consider or think maybe becoming an umpire could be something you'd want to do?
So it was never anything I set out to do. It was something I stumbled across, and the way I stumbled across it, I was sitting down watching the Ashes one night over in England on the couch with my wife Julie. Gave a couple of decisions as it was going down live and that, and Jules turned to me and said, "Well, why don't you look at umpiring if you think you're pretty good?" And I kind of dismissed it straight away. I said, "No, it's no way. Who the hell would want to do that? You've got to be kidding me." But I actually thought about it, and it was just a seed that was planted, and then made some inquiries and did the exams I needed to do, and got a little bit of cricket under my belt. And after the first game, I was hooked, sort of thing, and loved it, and I haven't looked back.
What was it like making that transition from player to umpire? I mean, the differences obviously are quite stark, but I imagine you would have had to umpire against maybe even some players you played against, or how did you find that transition?
Yeah, look, it was difficult when I played. I don't know that there's many players that have actually read the laws of cricket or even know how many laws there are. I know I was certainly one of them. I didn't even know what the law book looked like. So it was, there was a lot of study involved, a lot of things that I thought I knew from playing that I didn't know, and it's and it's still learning in progress. So there is a big difference, and I mean, luckily for me, I'd been out of the game a little while before I umpired, but I still had Skippy Sinclair, I think, was still playing. Gareth Hopkins was still playing. Guys that I'd played with in that were nearing the end of their playing days in that. So I might have had one or two game with those guys, but then sort of they were gone, and it was sort of no one around that I knew. So yeah, look, it was nerve-wracking because especially Gareth, Hoppy, he'd played with me in that, so he knew sort of what I was like, and now he's at the other end wicket keeping, and I'm at the sharp end not wanting to make a mistake. So it was it was interesting, but it's certainly been enjoyable, and it is a great challenge, and all I would say for anyone out there that hasn't tried it or thought about it is just give it a crack. You never know. You'll end up enjoying it, I'm sure, like I did, and crikey, here I am.
Yeah, no, it's an awesome story. You mentioned there, obviously the rules, huge part of being an umpire, but what about those other intangibles in terms of making decisions under pressure, dealing with players, dealing with, I suppose, fellow match officials and coaches, etc., everything that we get to see around the especially the big games at that highest level? How important is that aspect of being a top quality umpire these days?
Yeah, look, very much so. Decision making's very important, without doubt. But also so is your man management on the field, off the field, match management, communication, with coaches, captains, players. You got issues with players in general, fellow umpires, even as well. I guess I was quite lucky. My job in the police enabled me to get some skills around talking to people and the likes, and dealing in situations and that. So yeah, look, there's obviously more to it than just getting the ins and outs correct. You've got to be able to talk to people and get your point of view across, but you've also got to be able to listen as well, to where the players and the coaches and that are coming from. So you've got to be the all-round package, really. But like I say, look, it is a great challenge, and it is a great place to watch the game.
Yeah, you mentioned those skills you learnt, working as in the police as a detective. Do you think? I would think from an outsider's perspective and a media perspective, the hardest part about being an umpire is dealing with incorrect decisions and the flack that can come with that. How have you dealt with that over your time, especially when you go to the stage that you've got to now, where you're umpiring international cricket and every mistake is DRS, it's magnified, it's blown up, it's on social media. I imagine that it is really tough because it's so clear cut. You might have got that wrong.
Yeah, look, it is tough, and especially when you can look at a 60-foot screen 100 meters away, sort of thing, and it's crystal clear that there's a huge inside edge, and you've missed it, and you've got to swallow your pride, and you've got to have a bit of thick skin, and but you just you've got to realize it's part of the game. We're human. We make mistakes. You're doing your best out there. I know I started off early on probably scared to make a decision and scared to make a mistake, and then thinking it was the end of the world when you did make a mistake. But at the end of the day, maybe a change of mindset might have helped me. That, and it's not trying to be negative, but kind of expecting to make a mistake every day or every session you stand in that, chances are you're going to make a mistake, however big or small on that, and you've really just got to accept it, take it on the chin, learn from it as quickly as you can, and then park it and put it to one side and worry about the next ball, because the last thing you want to do is make two on the trot sort of thing. So but look, it's certainly no easy fix. It's like I say, everyone can see it on the screen. Everyone can see it at home. How did you miss that inside edge? Who only knows? If it wasn't for that, it was hitting the stumps, no problem. But apparently, according to the laws of cricket, for an LBW, you can't be bat involved. So you've just got to swallow your pride and get on with it.
And I know from working with you guys, it is tough. You will see a headline about an incorrect umpiring decision. You don't see many great headlines. What fantastic decision by the umpires here. So it's probably just a reality, I suppose. As an umpire, you do need to get your head around that. It can be quite a tough world in that respect.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. Look, if you come off the come off the field, no one's talking about the umpires. That's great. The only way, like you say, you're going to be in the headlines is because you've made a clanger or two, and it's had an effect on the game. And as an umpire, that's definitely what you don't want. And like I say, if you can walk off that ground, and no one's talking about the umpires, there's no controversy. I'd always put that down as a tick as a job well done.
Absolutely. And I suppose you mentioned the umpires there. It's the one thing I quite like about following you guys is the camaraderie you seem to have. And I'm going to bring in a fellow national umpire who's on the NZC national panel. I believe you guys have. I hope you guys have umpired together. He's a former nasty fasty like yourself, Brownie. He's from Northern Districts. He apparently buggered his back, which didn't sound too great. So he got his way into umpiring. He's risen through the ranks. He was on the national panel last season. He's retained his place for this season. He's an umpiring brother-in-arms with you, Brownie, obviously, on the domestic circuit. I'd like to welcome him to the show with the big intro. His name's John Dempsey. JD, welcome in. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Willie. Great to be here. Brownie, how are you?
Oh, I'm good, mate. Sorry, Willie, did you say he was named on the national panel again, is he?
Yeah.
I got the lucky stroke of the pen.
Oh, well done, mate. Obviously, Charlie didn't get my email, so well, congratulations. Well,
you guys have emailed, have not emailed. You said you emailed. You guys you've stood in games together, and clearly by that, Brownie, you're giving him a bit of stick. You've obviously got a decent relationship.
JD, have we stood together? Mate, I actually don't know.
Yeah, we have.
If I've had the pleasure.
I don't think we've done an official game, but we've done a number of warm-ups that I can recall.
Right.
We had some fun at the Mount with the Northern Districts boys a season or two back.
Yes.
But we keep banging into one another, and off the field and that sort of stuff. So I guess the relationship is still forming, Willie.
Well, let's hope that this is another important step in it on the Cricket Nation cast together. JD, your intro there from playing, moving into umpiring. Can you give us a quick overview of that and what got you into, I suppose, wanting to stand out in the middle?
Yeah. Well, I went straight from playing into umpiring, but I did have quite a lull in the middle of my playing career. I played Premier Club cricket and a little bit of rep stuff here in Counties Manukau. Then a number of personal things meant that I couldn't continue playing every weekend and those sorts of things. So I went into retirement from Premier Cricket. I was dragged out of retirement by a few mates who played alongside me at that level many years later, and enjoyed, I think it was 4 seasons playing Senior B. Let's just be kind and say it's one of the lower grades of cricket available to you in Counties Manukau. Had a ball for 4 years just playing with my mates and having a good time. But it was time to give it away. The knees have given me issues over the years, and they were reminding me that doing as much running around and diving and falling over with style and that sort of stuff wasn't doing me any favours. So playing days were put behind me, but straight away I put out some feelers to the umpires group here in counties to take up that role. And we're pretty fortunate here that we've got Tony Hill, who up until recently was our New Zealand umpire coach. Hilly and I go back away because we were club mates for many years. He was my captain for a number of my Premier club playing days. So there's a little bit of history there. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. You'll have to ask him if he's joining the crew a little bit later on in the discussion. So I attended my first meeting, and Tony was there, as were a number of other guys who are still umpiring. And got bitten by the bug pretty easily, really. I always enjoyed the role of player umpire when I was playing, because we didn't have the luxury of official umpires all the time, just through the numbers of guys that were around at that time. So we had to umpire ourselves, which has got its challenges, as everyone will be aware. If you make one wrong as a player umpire, you're a cheat. But if I make one wrong today, then I'm just incompetent. So you tell me which is worse. But I did enjoy it as a player umpire. So I figured that was the way to stay in the game. Not cut out to be a coach, I don't think. And scoring wasn't of anywhere near the same appeal for me. I don't have that mathematical brain that you need to be a human computer like those guys and girls. So yeah, and here I am. So I remember my first club game that I umpired. I was thrown in the deep end and did a Premier game without any sort of lower level stuff, as a lot of guys are asked to do. My umpiring partner that day was Ash Marotra, who was a current national panel member alongside myself and Brownie. So my umpiring career is well and truly entwined with his. And I do, oddly enough, remember my very first decision to make. It was an LBW appeal. It was a bat pad or a pad bat combination. So I had to make, it was one of those tricky ones where you have to make a call. Was it ball on pad first or ball on bat?
Squeeze ball.
I made up my mind that it was pad first, but pitched outside leg and therefore not out. And so my very first decision was challenged quite vociferously by the fast bowler in question. So I did get quite a baptism of fire in that way. But I was fortunate that a lot of the guys that I played with were still around the game as managers, coaches, or just general hangers-on. And I had my reputation sort of delivered for me, which was quite helpful, I have to say. They felt that, JD's got a bit about him, so look after him, and things will go well. So and they have. Can't deny that.
Is that as like a former player? Do you think that's where that came from?
Yeah, and I guess it was the way I played the game and the way I've conducted myself over those years as well. I mean, I loved cricket. I loved it from the first time I picked up a ball in particular rather than a bat at the age of 8, I think it was. But I've always believed very strongly in the spirit of cricket, even though I never read it as a player. I knew what it meant broadly. And so, yeah, you play hard, play fair, and have hopefully a very, very good time playing the game. And you make some friends along the way. You make some enemies as well, no doubt. But I'd like to think that I gained the respect of most of the guys that I played with and against, and so that gave me a little bit of a leg up when I started standing in the middle with the wide brim hat on, for sure.
Brownie, do you think being a former player, how important is that to being an umpire? Obviously, it's not an absolute necessity, or do you see it as pretty important to have actually played the game at some sort of level?
I think it's a bonus to have played it at some sort of level. You have a feel for the game in that, but look, I don't think it's essential. Essentially, you'll get judged on your decision making, and regardless of how high a level you've played at, if you're a crap decision maker, your probably career is pretty limited. But look, yeah, I think there is a place for it. How much weight you'd put on it, I couldn't really say. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's the decisions you make and the way you talk to people, the respect you give, is ultimately what really counts. I think, as opposed to whether you've played the game. But yeah, I think there is a part of it which is, if you've played that game, is going to be helpful, but it's certainly not the be all and end all.
Well, we've talked about the hard parts about being an umpire. What about the really good parts here, Brownie? This is you guys walking out for an international with your old mate Wayne Knights. Can you talk to us about what you enjoy about being an umpire, and particularly getting to umpire on these sort of stages?
Oh, look, this at the international, you've got the cameras, you've got the best players in the world there. Good decisions are going to be seen on the big screen, and your clangers are going to be seen on the big screen and around the world as well. But look, it's a great place to see some of the world's best players play the game and how they go about their role, whether as a batsman, a bowler, captain, and that. It's pressure. There's pressure, no doubt, but that when you start off, and it's it's really rewarding when you come off. You've had a good game. I never say that you enjoy it out there in that, because I find you're always on edge. But afterwards, as soon as you can get back in the sheds and have a beer, relax. And if, like I said before, if they're not talking about the umpires, then to me, that's a job well done. And you can start to enjoy it then and look back.
You mentioned getting to be out there with the best players in the world. They don't get much bigger than Rohit Sharma and the Indian cricket team have been here the last 2 summers. JD, I mean, I suppose umpiring international cricket, that's got to be the dream, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Willie, I'm a realist. I might have left my run a little bit late to make the dizzy heights that Brownie's on the way to, but I was also very fortunate to be included in that the white ball part of the Indian tour. So I was reserve umpire for a handful of those games, and the tour was run concurrently with the South African women's tour. So I was on field for a few of the women's internationals and an off-field reserve umpire role with the Indian boys, and that is an eye-opener to see those guys on tour and the crowd support that they have, obviously, and that follow them around. And it was a great experience, and also a valuable one from an umpiring point of view to see how those guys at the very top level tick and how games are managed at that level. And it's not a huge difference, I didn't feel, between those international games and our own domestic first class and Ford trophies and the like. But there are some key differences, and to be exposed to those at this stage in my umpiring career was great fun. I managed to get my first DRS decision made on the field correct, which was, I can tell you, a huge relief at the time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I suppose just before I drop you out, Brownie, is there anything John mentioned that he didn't think there was a lot of differences about going up to that next level, and I saw you nodding away. What would your advice be to your fellow umpires who on that national panel with you, and to the reserve umpire panel with a few of them on later on the show? What do you sort of pass on?
Yeah, like JD said, there's not a huge difference. The pitch is still the same length. The wickets are still pitched the same. You've got your processes. You've got to watch the ball. You make your decisions. You just got to cut out the cameras around you. The DRS. If when they do come upstairs, the crowd, obviously, in that nothing really changes. There's still a batsman at the other end. There's still a bowler coming in. You've got to watch the front foot, watch the ball, listen, make your decision. Not a lot changes, except for maybe the environment and the people watching, the people playing, and the cameras. But really, it's you just do what you do it well, prepare well, and who knows, just give it a crack. But you've also got to enjoy it. And I said before, I don't really enjoy it out there. Well, I do, but I certainly get the most enjoyment afterwards when you can sit down in the shed, wipe your brow, have a beer like with JD, and talk about it and go, "Phew, survived another one." So look, there's, like I say, there's not a huge difference. It's the same game. It's the same size pitch and everything. So you just go out, do your best with a smile on your face, have some thick skin, and enjoy.
Absolutely. Well, we've really enjoyed having you on the Cricket Nation cast, Brownie. Thanks for opening the batting up with us, mate. Thanks for all your help through the international summers so far, and we're looking forward to hopefully getting a full one and seeing you on our screens this summer, whatever that looks like.
Thanks, mate. If I've opened the batting, that's the first time in my career, so there's a first for everything.
I told you you're all rounder, so I'll drop you down the order now and drop you right out, because we're going to go from they call umpiring the best seat in the house, but I have talked to a lot of people who say that the second best seat in the house, or the other best seat in the house, is actually the scorer's hut. Now, our next guest started her cricket journey at Papatoetoe Cricket Club, where she worked for 10 years, 5 of them as the Premier Men's scorer. She then moved to Cornwall Cricket Club, where she's reeled off, get this, 21 consecutive seasons as the lead scorer there. She's a board member of the NZC Umpire and Scorers Association, sits on the Auckland Exec Committee. So she's basically the Debbie Hockley or the Sir Richard Hadley of scoring in this country. Along with these roles, she also serves as the regional scoring manager for the Auckland region. So we have regional scoring managers all around the country who manage the scorers, and it's a huge part of the game. I want to welcome her into the show. She's also the winner of our official scorer of the year. She won at the NZC Awards. Annette Campbell, welcome to the show. I know that's a big intro. I hope that doesn't blow your head up too much after all those accolades and awards.
Yes, thank you, Willie. It's certainly a big intro.
Have you worked with John before as on the Auckland or the county scene? John had the good grace to go down to Cornwall Cricket Club there and umpire a few games?
Not at Cornwall, but we certainly have worked together a lot at domestic level.
What's the relationship like, guys, between an umpire and a scorer? How much do you rely on each other?
Hugely. In fact, my mantra has always been that there are 3 teams in a game of cricket. The third team is the umpires and the scorers, and now the match referee. And that's absolutely it. We are a team, and we do all work together, and there are times when we do need input from one another. So it is absolutely a team game.
JD, you echo that?
Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree with Annette. We can't do the job without them, and they can't do it without us. And of course, if we upset them, they can leave us standing out there on one leg, circling leg byes for an extended period of time, just to remind us that there are processes to be followed, and you need to be more consistent with that, John. Thank you very much. Hasn't happened too often when Annette's been in the scorer's box. Of course, she's always very nice to me.
Annette, what do you run? Do you run a flashing thing or a big wave, or what's your sort of method?
At club cricket, we generally wave the arm or the towel or whatever. Domestically and internationally, we do have a red light usually that we use as our indicator.
It's all getting quite high tech. JD, before I let you go and I go one-on-one with Annette to really dig down into the scorers, as you look for next season, do you set goals as an umpire? What are you looking forward to, I suppose, about this coming season now that we have released the match official appointments and you're on that national panel?
Yeah, well, that was the first thing that I was looking forward to, sure, Willie, to make sure that there was still a sort of spot for me. For me, I think, given that the last season was my first full season operating at national panel level, I've been fortunate enough on the reserve panel to have a handful of games every year to introduce me to that level, but also for the powers that be to have a look at me, I suppose, and say, well, is he up to it or not? So thankfully, they've come down on my side of that ledger. So from my point of view, it's very much more of the same. Focus on the things that have got me this far. Take my feedback from match referees and the coach when we have one again, or whatever that role may look like in the coming seasons. And just keep developing myself and moving forward. But I'm a big believer in what Brownie said earlier, just before we ticked him off, that your own process is the thing that carries you through, and it doesn't matter what level of cricket that's at. You owe it to yourself to have that process locked in and do it at every level. So I didn't stand in a single club game last year. I just didn't have the opportunity to. My summer was just far too hectic and filled up. But when I do get that opportunity, I'm trying to operate in exactly the same way that I would do in a women's one-day international or a Plunket Shield match or whatever that game might be, because that's my best chance of success, of making good decisions consistently well. So if you haven't got those locked in, it's not going to be a very fun day in my view. So yeah, for me, business as usual, and looking forward to having a season confirmed, whatever format that may end up being, and playing my part as much as I can. So cannot wait.
Cannot wait. Well, it's a great note to drop you out on, JD. We thank you for your time, and we'll catch you again hopefully this summer.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
That was John Dempsey from the national panel. Annette, it's just me and you now.
Very good.
Yes. What do I want to about scoring? I want to know how we can get more people into scoring. So I want to hear your kind of scoring story. We don't have real long, but what are the things that you enjoy about scoring, and then what you think would be, inspirational to young scorers coming through today that are important to sort of know and understand.
Right. Well, I mean, as you said, that we talk about umpiring being the best seat in the house, but in fact, every bit as good as the seat as the scorers, because you're watching exactly the same game, but without the same pressures that the umpires have. You're watching the same players, and it's just, they're experiences that you just, really can't buy. It is just a great spot. You need to, I think, enjoy figures and numbers to be able to do it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mathematical brain, potentially.
Yes, it is. The scoring's moving on and becoming more computerized, but you still have to have the mathematical, logical thought. If you don't enjoy that, then you won't enjoy doing it. But there is a lot of logic to it. And it's being able to sit there and watch great players and great cricket games.
Who are some of your favourites that you've been able to score over your time?
Nationally, Nathan Astle. I loved watching Nathan Astle play. Adam Perori was great.
The wicket keeper, yes.
Yes.
Who would you have scored? Some of the Lauren Down, Holly Huddleston, some of maybe even Martin Guptill, Lockie, Parnell.
Lockie, yes. Colin Munro.
In his column, wouldn't there be? You would have had a few extras in Lockie Ferguson's column, wouldn't you, with the buys bowling at 150k at club cricket on a green seamer?
Yeah. Well, I've scored a lot of games with Heath Davis too, and he was the master of the no ball. So we would have 12 ball overs with Heath. There's been some interesting players. I think Tom Latham is he's been interesting to watch come through from a young player. I think he's really exciting coming forward.
You mentioned the extras, Annette. Sorry, you mentioned the extras there. Is that the biggest meltdown for a scorer when the boxes you're having to go over the fringes because you've got a 10 ball over or something like that?
The blood pressure does start to rise when you get to about 9.
Writing it smaller.
You're wondering where you're going to put the rest. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Let's talk setups. Let's talk kit. I might be able to show you. I think we've got an inside. Got an inside shot actually of this is your spot there. Talk us through your game day setup and your game day kit. What do you need for success?
Right. Well, as you can see there's an awful lot of wires now. So gone are the days where it was pure paper. But we still use paper. Paper's still an important part of what we do. Obviously, and there you can see we're sitting at Cornwall, and it's a great spot. It's elevated, so being able to see, and that's not always what you get at some of our grounds, unfortunately.
What about the pencil case? What are you operating in there? A multicoloured pen or your pencil? The old school, if you're going to be on the
no, it's pens. I've never used pencil. It's always been pen. There is always the trusty twink. You've always got to have twink and
a ruler.
No, you can get by without a ruler.
Calculator.
You don't need it so much now. It's and you do. It is a lot of your head. There's very little that you use a calculator for. And now that we're computerized scoring so much, a lot of that's just done for you automatically. But
what about the binoculars?
Yes, binoculars. Yes, you need those. You need to be able to see.
Yeah, especially when someone takes a catch out there at long on. I imagine you got to get out there. And who was that?
Yes, and that's where, with our team thing with umpires, even at club level, our club umpires are now carrying radios with them. We have radio contact with each other, and that's where there'll be times when you won't be able to see who's taken a catch because they're surrounded by players immediately, and that's where we do communicate with umpires a lot, to be able to ask them, can you tell us who took that catch? They're always brilliant at, if they didn't see it themselves, asking on field. So that's why that's really part of that critical team working thing that we do together, and it's at all levels. There is a communication between umpires and scorers, and it's often that they will ask us back too. They're not sure, is the 2 balls to come or 1 ball to come, and that's part of the being able to communicate with each other.
It's the teamwork.
Such a great part of it. Yes.
Yeah. Now, these are the NZC regional scoring managers. Obviously, you're looking after Auckland, I think temporarily ND. You've got Duncan Mitchell at CD, Ian Smith, the great Ian Smith, not the player, but this man's scored an incredible amount of games in Wellington. Tony Feely there in Canterbury, and Malcolm Jones in Otago. Have you guys got a little bit? I mentioned you're on the associations and the board there as well. Is the scoring fraternity pretty tight? You guys get to,
we are
good.
We are. We've been a group for our 13th season together.
Love it.
And we are a very tight group. We communicate a lot with each other. And the times when there's crossovers between the regions where there's multiple games or maybe shortages of scorers, there's no hard and fast boundary to a degree. We don't travel a lot as scorers, but we certainly help out each other if there's any shortfall or somebody needs a hand, and we certainly do. Yes, communicate and feed off each other for circumstances or for situations where we want somebody else's opinion. And they're just a great bunch of people, the 4 of us. We're just very tight group.
Oh, that's outstanding to hear. And what are scorers coming through? We're always looking at the next level. From what you're seeing, do we need more? What do we need to do? Talk me through it.
Difficult. We're always very, very happy to see somebody put their hand up. It's not something that people are leaping out to do. You'll find more people will be interested in umpiring, and I think that's about not necessarily being available week after week after week. They can choose to have a day off, a game off, where scorers attach themselves to a club to start with, and it would be rare that you would miss a game at club cricket, generally only if you were scoring at another level. So there's a time commitment, and it is a big time commitment. The game of cricket is a big time commitment. And you will sometimes get people who will be interested, but they don't want to sit all day scoring. Happy to do it for a bit like players, 10 over skills, but they don't want to commit that big time commitment. So it's not an easy job to recruit, but generally people that put their hands up are really interested and come along and stay along.
No, it's like a cricketer, you say, it's about the application. I remember I was an absolutely awful scorer in it because I'm too busy talking to people, at club cricket, and all of a sudden I've, writing the over in the wrong column, or I've put and there's about 3 different things to do, isn't there? But it's not an easy job. Just quickly, I was just thinking, like the score is, a great part of the game. Always, you get a few players coming in and out. What's your tip to the players? Do you like them to come in and out? Do they need to come at the end of the over? Be respectful. I know they're always wanting to know how many balls was that off, or etc. What's your advice to players who want to pop their head into the scorer's hut?
Yeah, preferably not in the middle of an over. the end of the over, but not right the instant the over is finished, because that's when you're doing the end of over stuff. Biggest thing, and I've always found this, is that players are respectful right from club level, and particularly at club, because you have more interaction with teams, is that most players are meticulous about saying thank you at the end of the day.
I like that.
And those are things that are, whilst it might sound like a small thing, it's the fact that somebody's acknowledged that you've been there, makes a huge difference to people. And as you go further up the tree, you don't get that so much, but it's not, it's because you don't get as much interaction with players. The higher up the levels you go with the games, you're not as in so much contact with players, and not at all at international level now.
Well, without the scorers, literally, how do you even follow the game? I mean, such an integral part. And in terms of thank yous, Annette, I know you were honoured at the start of this year in the Community Awards with the NZC Official of the Year. So I imagine that was quite a humbling experience. How did you feel about that?
It was huge, because totally unexpected, huge surprise, and it's not something that you think about. I guess players think, "Oh, who's going to be the Player of the Year and Bowler of the Year," and that. But as officials, you don't think along those lines at all. So to get an award like that was, it was very humbling to think that somebody had thought that what you were doing was worthy of note.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a great honour, and it's been lovely to have some time with you this afternoon. I'm looking forward to hopefully the season getting underway, and I can pop my head into the scorers up there at Cornwall or wherever you are around the Auckland region or even the country, and you can give me some tips on keeping my focus when I'm scoring. But we're going to move the show along. Annette, thank you very much for coming on, and keep up the great work.
Been a pleasure. Thank you, Willie.
No worries. That was Annette Campbell, the NZC Community Official of the Year. Now, we're going to keep the show moving. We've got two umpires. I think you can call Tony Hill still an umpire. He's once an umpire, always an umpire, they say. But we've got a man who's coming through the grades. He's a big up-and-comer. He's coming to us from the deep south in Dunedin. First time we're hitting the South Island in this show. He was a mediocre cricketer by his own admission. But he's making a name for himself, and he's on the national stage. His name is Kannan Jagannathan. And Kannan, welcome to the show firstly, mate. How's the weather down in Dunedin?
Thank you, Willie. Thanks for having me. It's another sunny, bright day in Dunedin, 12 degrees, I think. We've had a really good winter so far, so can't complain.
I don't believe that for a second, mate. Your cricketing journey into umpiring, you're telling me before we came on air about your limited playing, but what was the journey like becoming an umpire? And now you're up onto the NZC Reserve Umpires panel, which is the one just below the national panel.
Yeah, I didn't get to play much when I was younger. I moved to Dunedin about 9 years ago to do my master's. So that's when I got in touch with the local Umpires Association, and they put me in touch with the training people. That's when it all started. Started doing club cricket then. The support's been great ever since in terms of feedback, coaching, training. It's been good, very good so far. Lucky with all the opportunities.
Yeah, well, no, you're certainly blazing a bit of a trail through there. You mentioned when you moved here. So what age? I think you mentioned off there from Chennai, home of Stephen Fleming's Chennai Super Kings. How old were you when you came over to New Zealand?
Yeah, that's right. I grew up in Chennai, did all my schooling in Chennai, and when I moved here, I was 25, Willie.
And what are you now? You're 24?
34.
Yeah, 34. So you'd be one of the younger umpires sort of on either panel?
There are a few other guys who are in their 30s. I think Tim Sheriffs is still in his 20s, I believe. So I'm not the only one.
Absolutely. And how have you enjoyed it? How have you enjoyed the step up to that next level?
Very good. John and Yeah, thank that, John, and yeah, Derek's another great example of someone who offers support all the time. John and Chris spoke about how we have a really good relationship amongst umpires and how everyone is supportive of each other. So it's not just the friendships and the camaraderie. Even the amount of learning that you get from umpiring is very good. You pick up a lot of other skills that you can use and work outside of cricket. The decision-making aspect is obviously a challenge, as Chris Brown highlighted, and that's also exciting in a way. You want to challenge yourself and see how good you can be and how well you can contribute to a game. So I've thoroughly enjoyed my time so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And have you any sort of memories, I suppose, stick out from the season just been, and any opportunities that you particularly enjoyed?
Every opportunity is a golden one. This one in particular, you've got me there with Derek. That was my first 4-trophy game. Nelson Saxton Oval was obviously being a very picturesque venue. It was really good to get the opportunity to do a game there.
Beautiful.
My second 4-trophy game was another highlight. That was in Dunedin. It was nice to get a chance to stand in University Oval. But that was with Eugene. So yeah, lots of them. And the tournaments are always great. There's between 6 to 8 of us spending, sometimes 7 to 10 days in Lincoln, and most of the time we talk cricket and spend a lot of time off the field too. So it's all very memorable.
Wow, and you talk about the love of cricket, and the man we're going to bring in next year here is, undoubtedly one of the legends of New Zealand umpiring. Stood in matches all around the world, right up, on the ICC elite panel. He's been the coach of the umpires as well. I've been lucky enough to have him in the NZC office, and he gives us a bit of stick sometimes. He's coming to us from Waihi Beach today. He's obviously done a little bit of a pivot, so I think he might have even coached you as well, Kannan, as an umpire, but he's going to be a match referee, basically, officially coming for the season. So I'll bring him into the show. Tony Hill, welcome here, mate. Thanks for joining us.
Boy, oh boy, that was a scary intro, mate. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. Kannan, you've been working with Tony. What was that like when he was the umpires coach, and how much did you get to learn off a guy who literally has been right at the top of umpiring?
Yeah, I first met Tony even before I got NZC games. I first met him at a trainer seminar in 2015, I think it was, and he was trying to help us all trainers in the country with different tools and resources for training local umpires. So, and then a couple of years later, when I first started getting NZC opportunities, he's also seen me in a tournament before that. That's when I started getting NZC games and started getting feedback and observations from him directly. So his umpiring stats speak for themselves, obviously, but even as a coach, he's seems to be someone who lets us be our own selves, and I don't think he's tried to change us in any way. And certainly for me and a few other of my reserve panel colleagues have talked about how he, lets you be your own self and just gives you the confidence at the right times to bring out the best in yourself. So thank you, Tony. How are you?
I was well. Now I'm starting to hear all sorts of strange things about what I've done over the time. Who knows?
That's the glory of moving roles. Tony, what have you observed of Kannan when you first sort of met him as an umpire, and I suppose how have you tracked his journey?
I think he's made huge improvement over the last few years, and certainly parts of those improvements are not focusing a hell of a lot on bits that don't really matter. It's a matter of making sure that you're focused on what's important for the game ahead. In those early days, I remember with Kannan, and I'm sure it even happened the last time we met, notebook comes out with 2 or 3 pages of questions to be able to go over. Well, we've got an opportunity to sit and have a chat together. That always showed how much he was continuing to think about the game itself. But it's also a matter of just slowing that down a little bit and concentrating on the really important parts. And you've had those guys in already who are doing that, and certainly Kannan's in that group too. It's neat. That's what we're aiming for.
Mm. And Kannan, as you've gone up, and you mentioned working with Tony there, I mean, do you set yourself goals each season? How do you kind of, I suppose, track yourself? And the ultimate goal, I suppose, is to be in the shoes of, Chris, and I suppose next one is JD, which we saw there on the national panel. Is that the kind of, you got to set your goals high, I suppose?
Yeah, we are similar to the players in terms of having end-of-season reviews and work-ons. So we just reflect on what's happened well in the last season and what can we change and tweak to improve on for the next season. And I think both Chris and JD mentioned this before. It's the same game regardless of what particular competition or game you're doing. We try and repeat our game as much as possible, every single game, regardless of the format or the competition. So I'll be trying to do the same, trying to make those little changes from last season, the little improvements and the work-ons that have come up for me from last season, and hopefully make those improvements next year.
Mm. Tony, as a coach, you mentioned a couple of the key things there. When you are first working with umpires, what are the things that you're looking for in a good young umpire?
I think a heck of a lot of it is listening. And I'm not talking about being on the field solely, I'm talking about being off the field as well. Talking about between balls, exactly what you're trying to do yourself. I made a couple of quick notes. Things we're looking for. Yes, you want to make the right decisions. That's really important. But you've got to do the preparation. You've got to do the communication. And the communication out there is not just with the bowler or the captain or the batsman. You've got to remember you've got another person standing out there with you as well. You've got scorers, as we've had with Annette earlier on. And a huge part of your umpiring day is making sure that communication is going as smoothly as possible. The smoother you can get it, the better everything flows. So really important. And of course, you've still got to remember little things like laws and playing conditions and stuff like that. But there are a lot of people can focus on that and forget that there are other things that you need to work your way through.
Mm. On the minor scale, Tony, and this might sound a little bit silly, but what about the signalling? Obviously, very famous New Zealand umpire, Billy Bowden, made some signals his own. Do you do any work on that? Be honest as the coach. Do you do a bit of practice on,
No.
Okay.
All of that up to whoever's out there, as we've seen. And Billy's not the only one. There have been a few, and probably myself included, who have just made slight changes to what used to be there in the past.
Can you give us your one?
No. I haven't said that out on the cricket field for a hell of a long time.
Oh, really? You can't even give us an out for cricket cast?
I've had it yelled at me, but I've not said it myself since days long ago.
Really?
I think, sorry to jump in, Willie, I think Tony's been one of the politest appealers when he was bowling, from what we've heard from one of his playing colleagues.
Uh-huh.
Is that correct, Tony? Is that a fair comment?
Always polite. Carmen, thank you. Yep, very important.
Carmen, can you show us your out signal, please?
It's the same as most
Straight
of
up,
the others.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Rudy Kurtzen also had the slow one, didn't he, Tony? I'm just trying to think of other notable the way they used to do their umpiring signals. Well, yeah, Steve Buckner used to be the little one up there.
Yeah. We're all individuals, and you should be able to do what you want to do without maybe taking it too far over the top.
What about technology in the game, guys? It's obviously really has impacted umpiring in terms of the decision review system? What's your take been on it? Has it been a good thing for the game and a good thing for umpiring? Tony first, and then I go to Kannan.
I think it's probably the first year or two, while things were just getting themselves underway, it was a bit of a struggle. Nowadays, I think it's fantastic. It gets rid of that what used to be a pile of gripe between the players out there and the umpires. Now they're able to see what the heck's happened. Most times the umps have got it right, and never going to get 100% all the time. But really, really important that everyone knows how the system works, and you go with it. And over the last, how long we had this in there? I don't know, probably about 10 years now, maybe a little bit more. And all the time it's continuing to improve. And camera work and so on, fantastic. A lot harder in some of the days when I look back at what I was doing. You're over in a country and the material is not necessarily up to the right standard. I remember doing a test match in Zimbabwe, and the run-out cameras were getting put up at about 3 to 4 o'clock on day 2 of the test match. And it's just, in some parts of the world, it takes a little while to get everything organised right and make sure things are smooth.
Kannan, what about technology and training umpires? Do you guys use anything? Obviously, we've got the pooch, which you can watch back decisions and all that. How much do you use it for? I suppose reviewing and trying to improve as an umpire.
It's huge. I still go back to that trainer seminar in 2015 when the majority of us trainers around the country mentioned before the seminar started that we don't have enough resources for training. At the end of those 2 days, we all unanimously agreed that there's so much of resource in videos, documents, tools available now for training. Now it's purely up to us to use them in the right way. There's no shortage of resources. It's just a matter of using the right ones at the right time. So it's a great tool for training, no doubt. And yeah, it is there. We just have to adapt and change and use them in the right ways. That's all.
And no danger of sort of paralysis by analysis, Tony, with too much technology? Or do you think the more the better, the more information you can have as an umpire, the better you can be equipped to make a decision?
Yes and no to those questions. I think sometimes you can end up with an umpire who's more worried about what's happened previously and wants to have a look at the clips rather than focusing on what's happening in front. And it's really that's a really important part. And it's something that, we've had to talk about over the years and make sure, especially now where all of our first class men's cricket has got pooch. So you can walk in, have a chat with the match referee and have a look at a particular clip if there's something. But at the same time, there's a game. You've got to make sure you're focused on that. That's the important part. Yes, there might have been a questionable decision made. You can worry about that later. That's gone. And we've got to focus on what's coming up next.
Well, what's coming up next for you, Tony, is you're moving to becoming a match referee. I'm going to drop Kannan out before he goes. Tony, is there anything you want to pass on to your your former charge before he embarks on another season standing in the middle?
Just keep doing what you're doing, Kannan, same as normal. And we will meet up somewhere, I'm sure, for a good chat.
Great. Thank you, Tony. Thanks, Willy, for having me. No
worries. Keep up the good work from down there in the south. And I I suppose, Tony, it must be quite cool for you to see these umpires that you've worked with and help progress as they come through the grades, and an exciting day today as we release the appointments for the panels. In your mind, as the former umpiring coach, is the standard of umpiring and the level in this country at a good level, at a level you're happy with? Can we do more? What do you think?
I think the level at the moment's very good. But does that mean that we're not going to, or I've got to take that back because I'm not exactly right in the middle of it. Are we going to sit back and relax and say everyone's going pretty well, so let's just take our time? No. And I know the groups that we've got there at the moment will be determined to make sure they're getting as much right as they possibly can every single game. Would certainly hope.
Yeah, being a match referee, what was I've got the list up there as well. What was is that part of just wanting to stay in the game? Is it a role that you look forward to, you've enjoyed? How does it come about? And I know you did a couple of games maybe last year. How much are you looking forward to it?
I'm looking forward to it plenty. The reason I decided to stop on the coaching side of it was that I felt that I'd been there 6 or 7 years, and time really for a new voice, new face turning up. The last thing you want is for people to start going to sleep because they're hearing similar things all the time, I thought. And then last year, I managed to get about 8 or 9 T20 games to go and work as the match ref, and I quite enjoyed that. And I thought, well, if I'm stopping, maybe there's some little way of still being a part of the game somewhere, game I love, been in amongst it for years and years and years. So, yeah, and New Zealand cricket have been good enough to let me come and join them. We'll see how the day goes.
And alongside you, there'll be Gary Baxter, Ross Dykes, Richard Hayward, old shots up there, and you might be Nelson. Yeah, and Kevin Pulley as well, and yourself, Tony. So do you think, I think it probably is obvious, being an umpire, the skills, the knowledge of the game, your experience does lead into being a match referee? And can you give people out there an idea of the roles of a match referee in and around game day?
Well, you need to communicate. That will be a large part of it. Through the day itself, you need to make sure that you're watching what's happening. And again, with the men's game, we've always got pooch. So if you're not quite able to watch a particular delivery and there's something's happened, you can always go back. We've got a technician right beside us, and they can rerun the delivery for you so you can see what's going on. And it's easy enough to be distracted in that particular role because we've got scorers next to us. We've got people popping in to ask questions. There could be the batting captain who wants to come up and check on something. There could be either of the team coaches want to come and have a chat. So there's plenty to keep everyone on their toes, and plenty also to mean that you're not necessarily focused on a particular ball. So having the pooch there is brilliant. We're able to check it.
Yeah. We mentioned teamwork before with the umpires, and I suppose the match referee, Annette mentioned it before as well, it does make part of that match officials kind of game day collective, I imagine, and you've all got your own parts to play in supporting each other and just ensuring that a good, fair game is played and we can move on to the next one. Absolutely.
And I can't, I'm sure you're the same, I can't see that changing at all. And although my role is slightly different, I'll still be there supporting the umpires as always. And if I see something that I think could be improved, whether it's the umpires, players, whatever, administration, then there's an opportunity to get in there and say something.
Tony, just looking at the umpires, you mentioned the ones that we've got, and obviously Wayne Knights, Chris Brown, and Sean Hager, the ones who umpire internationally, especially in the white ball cricket. this summer with the global pandemic, COVID-19, there's a real chance that those guys get a chance to actually step up to international test cricket as well and umpire tests in their own country. How special would that be for a New Zealand umpire, do you think?
Absolutely brilliant. It's interesting that, heck, I don't know how long it's been since you umpired in your own country. A lot of umpires have sat back and said, I'm really pleased not to have to umpire my own country in a test match. There have been people pushing in Ashes games to use Aussies and Bombs at either end. And both groups have always stepped back and said, no, thank you. And a huge part of that is the way everyone reacts through to it on games where you're looking after it with your own guys. I will back everyone who's out there doing it. You look at the guys over in England at the moment with the test series they've got there, and there have been a heck of a number of reversals for decisions that were made. And that's the game now, I think, when you've got the technology that we've got. You're out there as an umpire and it's hit the pads. You have to really, really work your way carefully through all the things in your head to get that decision. If we're doing a normal game, first-class game in New Zealand, 4-day game, and something's tight, I'd expect our guys to be giving them the benefit. In a test match, with all the cameras and everything, it's a little bit harder to give benefit. You have to be just so tight in making that call.
Benefit to the batsman, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, as a batsman, I like to hear that. Do you think, what's your take on, just before we go, I know we've got to wrap this up, Tony, but I'm interested to pick your brain on the umpire's call ruling at the moment, in terms of sticking with the on-field decision. If it's, deemed to be, I think it's 50% of the ball or more is, is going to be not hitting or hitting.
Yeah.
So you stick with the umpire on the field's decision. What's your take on that?
I'd stay with what we've got. It's already been shifted a bit since I first used it, and you had what appears a lot more of the ball hitting the stump was still part of that umpire's opinion. They've now pushed those boundaries out a little bit more. There's not a hell of a lot there. I think if the umps made a call and it shows that it stays because it's the ump's call, then fair decision. Get on with it. Everyone, what the calls are. That's it. Let's play.
Yeah, and I think also at the end of the day, I mean, the biggest thing you want is, getting rid of the obviously incorrect decisions. And when it's going to be so 50-50 or tight, I think you got to understand a little bit of rub of the green and actually give the benefit of the doubt to the umpires in that situation as well. And also the fact that it's a parabola, isn't it? So, there's no 100% guarantee exactly where a ball would go, especially if they load the wrong one. Am I right, Tony?
Oh, I've heard that rumour, yes.
It's good stuff. Oh, well, look, thanks for coming on today, and testament to how good your chat is. We've actually got Kannan, who's still sitting in the green room watching the show, pick up a few tips, and I can also see you there, Annette, as well, following along. But Tony, we've enjoyed having you on. It's cool to see how you've helped the umpires that we've got on our panels, and it's awesome to see that you're still keen to be involved. And we look forward to seeing you out there in your blazer, picking up the coin and telling us whether it was heads or tails, and hopefully not citing too many players this summer, eh?
Would I do a thing like that?
You'll be enjoying the game nonetheless, though, won't you?
You bet, mate. Happy to be here. Thanks for your time, Willie.
Awesome. No, well, that's a great note to end on. I'll leave you go, Tony. And that's the wrap-up, basically, of our match officials special here. We've got the appointments. Now it's just time for some cricket. So we're hoping for a full international and domestic summer of cricket here in New Zealand. Thanks for joining us. I'm giving you out. That's the Match Officials Cricket Nation Cast special. Over and out.